as a human being, I write down a number that doesn't just the information back onto the chart. I don't like to have it on my chart. I only have annotations for the sake of teaching you. I know what I'm looking for, and I know what I'm focusing on for that particular session or that day. And I know the key levels because they're usually written on a piece of paper next to me. I'm not interested in having a lot of stuff on my chart because what that'll do, number one, it clutters it up. My eye goes to it. It may be a factor for you to start looking at the lines and you wonder how many times did it touch. It becomes a distraction, right? So if you keep your chart naked, but you have the price levels in mind, what you're actually doing is you're learning to trade naked. And by trading naked, you're not going to have any influence at all, except for what the price is actually doing at the time while you're looking at it. So in the beginning, I say this, it's okay for you to have the annotations on your chart initially. That's fine. But having them on, once you understand what you're doing, you want to try to gravitate to that, where you're trying to have as little as possible on your charts and keeping them clean. Because you'll find, which you can't really appreciate right now while you're new or haven't really done these types of things by watching price with these tools and these reference points being referred to while watching price deliver. You'll find once you understand how to use this information, and by having them on a notepad next to you, and you're constantly referring to the relationship to where price is right now versus them on a external piece of paper or maybe a notepad, or not a notepad, but like a tablet. It needs to be external from the chart, and that way it'll allow you to be flexible. And I noticed in my own development, when I would sense that the market was probably in trouble and not going to be continuously moving where I wanted to go, when I had all these types of annotations on my chart, what it did for me was it kind of like helped me in an adverse way of holding on stubbornly and say, no, I'm imposing my will. It's going to do this because I have these lines and things annotated on my chart. So it's going to happen. And for me to break out of that, I had to force myself eventually. It didn't happen fast. It didn't happen real quick, but I had to move away from having annotations entirely at all on my chart. And then I became a lot more flexible where I could see, okay, yeah, this is problematic. It's telling me because price is showing all kinds of signatures, and signatures are types of things I talked about, like where we didn't see it trade into a fair value gaps midpoint or consequent encroachment. If it trades up into it when we're bearish and it fails to touch that, that is indicative of weakness, because if it can't even touch the midpoint of the fair value gap or inefficiency, then it's decidedly weak, right? So we can really feel confident that if we take another bearish order block as an entry, if we get a fair value gap after that one that's on a 15-second chart, it's going to probably be a winner, because everything is indicating that it's now going to be moving one-sided, decisively lower, because it can't even trade up to a PD array. So if the PD arrays are failing when I'm already looking for a short and they can't even fill in or just trade back to the midpoint of it, that's wonderful insight. That's wonderful. It keys up on this is going to be a nice run, and then look for the inefficiency to be low price for a single low or relatively good lows for it to trade to sell side liquidity. But I just want to mention this before we get into it, because you're going to see a lot of lines again today on the chart. And I want you to understand that I don't have this on my chart, but you need this initially for you to study, because you're not supposed to be pushing any buttons even on a demo. You're supposed to be studying how price gravitates and moves around them and pulls back to them as a kind of like a magnet, and draws price back to them, not just the one time. It will constantly refer back to them, which is what, in my opinion, proves unequivocally that there is absolutely an algorithm, and anyone that looks at this and studies it, they're going to have to come to the conclusion that either there's structured randomness, which is an oxymoron, or there's something in control. And they keep going back to these levels that's never really been referred to in history as a repeating phenomenon until I revealed it to you all. So having that generic perspective grow in terms of new week opening gaps, new day opening gaps, those are your primary factors for determining bias. Now, the bias can be reduced to just the session that you're trading. It can be reduced down to that hour. So we can have models that build what's the hour that we're about to start trading in, what's that bias going to be? What's the bias for the next 3 hours? That's typically like a session. What's the bias for the entire morning before noon lunchtime in New York? What is the entire daily range bias? What is that going to be? And how do we arrive at that? Well, you're going to use the same things I taught this week. You're just going to be looking for a starting point. When is it going to set the beginning point? Well, in the evening time, you're going to be waiting for 6 o'clock. And you're going to annotate where we open in deference to where we closed at 5 o'clock. So that our gap in indices, we're annotating that for the new day opening gap. And whichever that 6 o'clock opening price is, if it's above or below, if it's above the closing price at 5 o'clock, when we have our hour break, if it's above it, that means that that 6 p.m. opening price is your new day opening gap high. And if it opens below where we closed at 5 p.m., that means we have a new day opening gap lower, and that 6 p.m. opening price that you're going to annotate is going to be your new day opening gap low. And you find the equilibrium, or not equilibrium, the consequent encroachment, which is the midpoint of it, if it's over 20 handles or so. If it's over 20 handles, then I'm going to probably have, the midpoint consequent encroachment annotated. Certainly anything above 20 handles, I'm always going to have that there. If it's less than, I'm always going to just eyeball it. And the reason why I want to have that there, because if it's above 20 handles and I have a reference point that tells me that level, I know by eyeballing it, just looking at it without having an annotation, I can see where the upper quadrant and the lower quadrant inside that new day opening gap would be. I don't have to have the lines on there. Okay, so my emphasis today is for you to, while these are important things to have on your chart initially while you're learning, and it doesn't mean rush through it because you want to go to a point of not having anything on your chart because I say I don't, and therefore you want to be just like me and you think it's going to be a superpower. It's going to slow you down if you try to trade naked without understanding or having the experience of seeing weeks and months of this. So while I'm kind of like ushering Caleb through 1 month of this stage, he's looked at charts before this. So I'm just going through the pantomime basically of saying this is what you would be doing if you're new, but you would be doing it for a couple months, whereas I'm just doing it for 4 weeks with him. So that way you can see a baseline of what journaling looks like. And while we're talking about that, I want you to know what his YouTube channel is. And this is a little picture here that I wanted to refer to later on. So we'll have this as a talking point in a moment. His YouTube channel
Guys, I'm about to cash a check for $180,000 and get my entire car.
Is this correct, son? Is that how you had it? Yes, sir. All right, so that is, if you put this in the search tab on YouTube, that's his channel. We will have the first video for his development, his review, how he sees things based on what I taught this week and what his charts look like. Everything that I've instructed you all to do and him throughout this week, Sunday, probably Sunday evening. I don't know what time, but it'll be sometime in the evening time. The video will launch there. And then I'm telling him I want a midweek, like I need to see what he's doing and what he's looking at and what his charts are being annotated like. I don't want to go the whole week because if he spends the entire week doing the wrong things, that's building bad habits. And I want to know what he's doing in the middle of the week. So there might be a Wednesday video and then a weekend video. Okay, but if you subscribe to this channel here, then you'll be able to see the perspective from him, and then where I'm counseling him, what he's doing correctly, what he's not doing correctly, and adjust and calibrate where his focus needs to be going forward. So that way it's kind of like you're in the classroom with him, but I'm not answering your questions. Okay. So you have to just experience it through his eyes, his understanding, and you'll see when he gets in the woodshed too. So anyway, I'll have a link for it also on my YouTube channel. So that way anybody that comes out and tries to put their little fake bullshit and they try to copy it, so that way they can get traffic to their channel. If you copy any of my videos, ICT Gems YouTube channel, I already see that you're putting stuff up there right from these live streams. I'm going to be doing copyright strikes against you this evening. I already said, do not do that. If you take little snippets and stuff like that, little pieces, I don't care about that, but you're putting the entire lecture on your channel. So I'm letting you know, I'm sending shots to you tonight. If you want to take them down, wonderful, I won't do it. But if you're doing that, if you're another YouTube channel like Inner Circle Trader Brazil, you've been translating everything into your language there, I'm getting ready to fire them off towards you as well. I do not give anybody permission to do that. If you use the closed caption option, you can find your language. Okay, I've shown it several times when I was doing live streams on how to do it. It's always there, but you got to wait for the transcript to be completed by the servers on YouTube. Once that's done, all the languages can be converted right onto
Yeah, this is clean, bro. Look at that. 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 This looks so clean. Sweep of London. Oh, that's so clean, bro. The fact that we left this slightly open energetically moves away. We reach 50% of this previous day. 50%. Look at that. 50%. Oh my god. PM session. 1400 to 1600. This whole day. That's crazy, bro. And straight freaking move away from it. It's wonderful. That's so clean, bro. Tap sensor here. So clean. I think we'll close this, maybe sweep this. Dang, all these orders are buys, bro. I just need to see they swept. Let's go. We're going out this week. Actually, let's just go with mm, uh, drawings. Bro, that's Too many, too high.